Practiced all week coming up this side. You know how like NFL players will wear the same socks for the whole season? Kind of the same thing. Although I changed my socks today. Alright, you guys, boy, what's up with the snow? My goodness. I just want you to know it's my job today to keep you out of the snow just a little bit longer. What I mean is this, I have news. Let's say, you know, the good news, bad news thing, right? Let's not say that because that's subjective. Let's just say news and other news. So here's the news. The sermon today is only about 8 minutes long. Now, thank you. I thought you guys were boy, okay. Now the other news is that I got to give you about 30 minutes worth of background material to actually get through the sermon. And you're laughing now, but in 30 minutes you're going to be like, he was telling the truth. Right on. So in the spirit of Smokey and the Bandit, we got a long way to go and a short time to get there. You got that song in your head all day, don't you? So if you have your Bibles, go ahead and turn to Mark chapter 4. Again, looking at your Bible, Matthew, Mark, going New Testament, Mark chapter 4. If you have your smartphones or your iPads like I do, or your tablets, go ahead and turn the Bible out to Mark chapter 4 as well. A couple new things. I'm gonna try standing up here today because last week I noticed, because I'm short, I love the floor, I do, but I'm short, and I noticed some of you were like dodging people trying to see me. So I'm gonna try this today. That's brand new. Also, I'm using my iPad, so let's pray that battery doesn't give out. Although it says 100%, and I may have technical issues with that. But as you guys are turning to the text today, look, I want to share with you. Remember what I said last week? 2 things that Jesus said that just sound ridiculous. Now, of course, you know from last week I was saying that I believe everything Jesus said and says is applicable. It's healthy. It's good, you know, for us today, tomorrow, for every tomorrow. But there are 2 things, and in fact, we could break it down to 3 things specifically today that Jesus says that just sound ridiculous to us. And so I want to share with you, in the midst of that, 3 stories. And the first story begins with a storm. And since what we're looking at today is narrative, I want you to understand 75% of the Bible is written in a narrative fashion. It tells a story. That's what we're going to do today, because as I went through this verse by verse, as I like to do, I was through story number 1 and it was like 40 minutes. Okay, so we're not doing that. Okay, so we're gonna fine-tune it just a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna just share with you a little bit what's going on. This first story involves a storm. And leading up to this, you have Jesus in a house with his disciples, and he's teaching them parables. In fact, he's preaching and using parables that time. In fact, that day he used more parables than he used any other time with his disciples. He shared 9 with them. And so he would tell them a parable, and they would say, that was great, but we really don't get it. And Jesus would say, oh, you didn't understand my story? Let me tell you another story. And they would say, that's really good, but we just don't understand what you're saying, Jesus. And so this happens, and this goes on for 9 parables. And then he looks at his disciples and he says, let's go. It really is getting at, he said, let's go to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. That's not really a sea at all. It's actually a lake. In fact, Luke calls it by its proper name, the Luke of Gennesaret. I bet he did say that at one time. Luke probably did say it. Lake of Gennesaret. So that's what it's called, but it's known as the Sea of Galilee. It's a large body of water, though. It's 7 miles north to south and 3.5 miles wide, east to west. So again, not super huge, but they're going to go to the other side. You also have to understand they're not really going to the other side. They're going from like the northern shore to like the eastern coastline-ish, somewhere in there. So kind of a diagonal path. And as they set out, right, they just jump in their boats. They're going. Jesus said, let's go to the other side. They don't stop and grab a bag. They don't shower. They don't stop for Happy Meals. They just jump in a boat and they just start heading out. And then there's other boats, because it's a kind of a fishing community. So other boats start following him, right? Because this is Jesus. And I keep saying this. I don't mean this in a blasphemous way. Jesus was like a rock star. He drew a crowd everywhere he went. People wanted to see him. They wanted to hear him. They didn't necessarily want to listen to him, but they wanted to hear him. They wanted to be fed by him. They wanted to be healed by him. Okay, so he always drew a crowd, and so this is no different. He's in the house. I kind of suspect he's peeking out the curtains, or maybe he's closing the blinds, right? Okay, they wouldn't have blinds. Don't just make a joke. Maybe they were Venetian. Stand in front of them. I'm sorry, it's terrible. Terrible. there's a crowd coming, right? So he leaves, they go out, they jump in the boats, they take off, other boats are following, which is a bad idea, because you're going to see there's a storm that's going to come up in just a few moments. And I really wonder if those boats are still at the bottom of the lake today, or if they made it back, because we don't know from the text. I do know this, in 1989 they found one of those boats, the bottom of that lake, and I can tell you that they're a large rowboat that barely fits 12 men comfortably. And so you got this, what's going on today, Jesus and his 12, so you got 13 crammed into this boat. And they take off, and I don't know how or where Jesus did this, but he found a place somewhere in that boat, in the back of the boat, to lay down and go to sleep. I can't even imagine, I can't even understand how that all happens, but they're moving along, and the storm comes up. In fact, this is the first text I want you guys to see. Mark chapter 4, verse 37. It says, a furious squall came up. Now you need to understand that that's not an angry Indian woman. Okay, that is a very violent storm that comes in. And the way it happens is because the Sea of Galilee it's a geographic anomaly. It really is. It sits 693 feet below sea level. It's surrounded by these hills that are 2,000 feet tall. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Those sound like mountains to me, but these hills, and the wind would just come cruising along, and it would barrel down those hills, hit the Sea of Galilee, and these storms would come up. Now also you need to know that the Greek word that's used there for that furious squall, that's an intense storm. It's the same word that we would translate as a hurricane. So you got to understand, it's not just a mamby-pamby storm that's coming along here. Okay, so it's violent. And we see in the text that the boat is, I just kind of picture it, right? The boat is rocking all over the place. The wind is blowing like crazy. There's thunder, there's lightning. Waves are crashing against the boat. We know that water's coming in the boat. They're getting swamped. And in the midst of this, I love this, in the midst of all of that chaos, the disciples run over and they shake Jesus and they wake him up and they say, Master, don't you care that we're going to drown? You know, they're like, we're going to die. And you're sleeping. Interesting, huh? Here's what I think is, by the way, they don't ask him for a miracle. I don't know if you guys really caught that. They just wake him up. They want him to help. It's like all hands on deck, right? Let's get this water out of the boat. And so essentially, it's almost humorous, almost. They have the Son of God in their boat with them, and in the midst of this storm, all they can think to do is hand him a bucket. Right? It's almost humorous, but guys, I would caution against laughing too much, because some of you might be there right now.
That's right.
You might be going through a horrendous storm in your life at this very moment, and Jesus is right there in the boat with you, and you don't ask him to calm the storm, you're just giving him a bucket. So they wake him up, they're afraid. I love that there's no dialogue in the text whatsoever, Jesus just stands up. Normally that's a bad idea. How many fishermen we got here? Fisher people? So I'm trying to be political here. Okay, yeah, you don't typically, in a rowboat, you wouldn't stand up. Especially not in the back of the boat. I mean, balance-wise, right, in a storm. I mean, you don't want to fall in. The disciples, I'm sure, it doesn't say, but I'm sure, the disciples, they're not all fishermen, but most of them, they would have got it. They're probably laying close to the bottom of the boat. But Jesus stands up. Well, yeah, actually, now that I think about it, it's not really much of a big deal. He can walk on water. You just tuck and roll and get back in the boat. But you know, he's like, he stands up. No dialogue. He just stands up and he says, "Quiet, be still." I love it. Now let me give you the literal translation of what Jesus said to the storm, okay? And it's not so much from the Greek over here as it is from my mom over here. He said, "Sit down and shut up." Right. It's essentially what he says. And the storm did it. It listened. It obeyed him. And it was calm. And then I love this. Jesus looks at them and he asks them, "Why are you afraid?" That's our first. One of the ridiculous things that Jesus says. And it's almost a two-part question, because here's what he says. Why are you afraid? And why is your faith so little? It's almost one question, just kind of in two parts. Why are you afraid? Now think about it. It's ridiculous, okay, a little bit, because these guys, they're seasoned at this. They've done this before. They know what it's like to go out on this lake. They know what it's like to be in the midst of storms, to have, no room because, they're catching fish. They're bringing fish in too. So, trying to relate to these guys. I mean, they get it. Right? I mean, honestly, with the storm being as intense as it is, you can kind of understand why they were kind of tripping in the hood, right? I mean, they're like, we are going to die. They're used to storms, they're used to the winds, they're used to all of those things going on, but this hurricane force, that's pretty epic. And so they're shaking them. We're going to die. And Jesus, he's like, why? Why are you afraid? Well, they think they're going to die. Kind of has that effect on us, doesn't it? I can tell you on roller coasters, my wife will attest to this, I've screamed, we're going to die! Sometimes when we're like going through loops and, dropping down 700 feet straight, below sea level, kind of thing. She tries to get me on the crazy ones. I don't do it as often as I used to because I feel that. You get that little bit of fear. They think they're really going to die. And I love the next verse. The most amazing verse. Verse 41. It says, they were terrified and asked each other, who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. They've been with him for over a year at this point. They've seen him turn water into wine. They've been there when he's healed people, taken away their sickness, their diseases, healing leprosy, healing from demons. They've seen all these things, and yet at this moment when Jesus demands faith, they stand there and they say, who is this guy? I want you to know this. Jesus was only amazed 2 times ever. Ever. He's the Son of God. You got to be pretty awesome, really, to amaze the guy. But 2 times. One, he was amazed when the centurion approached him and said, I need you to heal my servant. And you know what? You don't even go to my house. You just say the word and he'll be healed. I know that. I trust that. He was amazed by the great faith of that Gentile. And then the other time he was amazed was when he was in his hometown and he couldn't perform many miracles because of their great lack of faith. Jesus really only could be amazed at our great faith or our great lack of faith. And at this moment, he's calling for faith. In the midst of everything, he says, why is your faith so little? Even in the midst of storms, he wants us to be faithful. Listen, he doesn't demand that we go out and build Bible colleges. He doesn't demand that we have Bible conventions. But he does demand that we have faith, even in the midst of our storms. Okay, so that's story 1. So put that in your pocket and hang on to it. Story 2 picks up right there, right where we left off. They're on their way to the other side of the lake. Now, by the way, they're heading over there. That's Gentile country. That's an area. Jews and Gentiles, they don't get along. It's not as bad as Jews and Samaritans. There's a whole other sermon. But Jews and Gentiles don't get along. And I imagine the boat ride was quiet. I can't say peaceful, because I don't know, but quiet, yeah. I kind of think of VeggieTales Jonah. You guys ever seen it? Anybody? Please, some of you. I wanted to show the video, but okay. I love Jonah, right? It's VeggieTales, okay? He's in the boat, the ship, whatever. The waves are crashing. There's thunder. There's lightning. There's a ton of chaos with the wind blowing. It's chaotic. And then he comes out, and it's VeggieTales. He walks the plank, and he jumps in. As soon as he hits the water, it's like sploosh. As soon as the splash, whoop. All the dark sky is gone. It's nighttime, it's gone. It's a blue sky. There's a sun over here. There's birds flying by and chirping. The water is calm and peaceful. Right? It's humorous, but I almost get that kind of a sense of what happened. Maybe not exactly, okay? But just bang, there's this chaotic storm, and Jesus says, stop, and it's done. And it's calm, and it's peaceful. And what are the disciples? They're shaking in their sandals at this. Right? I imagine it was a quiet ride. But as we get to the second story, they're heading towards the Gadarene country. Now as they get closer, you gotta kind of picture what's going on here. There are cliffs that are there on the side of the area there, and there are caves that are dug out of those, which we're going to find that we're going to see this demoniac, this guy who is possessed by many demons, he probably would have lived in one of those caves. But there's also this hillside with pigs. 2,000 pigs. I'm trying to make sure I give you all the details. 2,000 pigs and some shepherds. Well, they weren't really shepherds. They were more like pig herders. But they were there. Imagine these guys for a second. Right? They're out there doing their job. They're just minding their business. These are the guys you'd find at like a 7-Eleven between like midnight and 5 a.m. Okay? I don't mean they're dumb or anything. I just mean that these guys, they have a pretty mellow job. It's the graveyard shift. They just got to kind of make sure that the pigs do what pigs do, which is eat everything, essentially. And so they're just kind of hanging out watching. Now imagine this storm comes up out of nowhere, which they're probably used to. Maybe they back up and they're in a cave and they're trying to stay dry. And then boom, it's so totally, completely gone. And it's peaceful. Can you imagine? It'd be a little bit eerie for those guys. Can you think about that? I mean, just walking out and looking and it's like, just chirp, 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 chirp. Maybe not even. Maybe it's just really super calm and peaceful. These guys they're a little bit freaked out. It's a little bit eerie, right? And again, remember, they don't get along with Jews, and so they look down and they see this boat approaching with Jews, and they know that the demoniac is there. This guy who's possessed by demons, he's violent, he's just a really mean, nasty person, and they're probably looking down. I can kind of picture him like leaning over the cliff, right, looking down and like, oh, these guys are going to get thrashed. Watch, come here, guys, this is going to be like UFC 280. Watch. You know, there's like this epic beat down, okay? And I kind of picture that, so see that how that's going. And as the boat pulls up to the shore, I kind of see this too. Kind of see like, right, they get out of the boat, and they come over here, and they walk under the dry ground. And then this demon-possessed guy comes running at them, full speed, buck naked, long hair, probably long sharp nails, right? Violent guy, like somebody out of a Ozzy Osbourne cover from the album cover from the 80s, right? Screaming at the top of his lungs. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds eerie, right? That's eerie. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I can see Peter doing this, like, nope, nope. Jesus, back in the boat? Come on. Come on, guys. I can kind of see that happening, because I would probably be like, yeah, I'm going to go over here, you stay over there. But that didn't happen. Jesus is standing there, this guy comes running at him full speed, and throws himself down on his knees at the feet of Jesus. And I love this part because, look, from the previous story, the wind and the waves, they knew who Jesus really is. He rebuked them, they stopped. And in this, it's the same thing. The demons start screaming, what do you want from us, Son of God? I love it. They know who Jesus really is. And Jesus is clear. He's like, I want you out of that guy. What's your name? And they say, our name is Legion. Now Legion is something we would equate with like the Roman army. A legion would be 6,000 soldiers, okay? So if you want to get really literal, let's just do this here, okay? 6,000 demons in this guy. We'll just, for simplicity's sake, we'll keep it super straightforward. And they say, don't cast this into the abyss before the appointed time. I get it. I love it. I love it. They know exactly who Jesus is. There's no confusion. They say, oh, let's go into the pigs. 2,000 pigs. So if you do the math, 6,000 demons divided by 2,000 pigs, that's about 3 demons per pig. Now, what does Jesus really care? He's Jewish. He doesn't eat ham or bacon. Right? So he's like, boom, okay, go. And they run in, they go into the pigs. Now here's where you got to track with me a little bit, okay? The pigs, they run hog wild down this hill into the water. It's the first case of deviled ham. Remember, a groan is just as good as a laugh. If you didn't like it, that's swine with me. So they run down this hill, they splash into the water, 2,000 pigs. Now, pigs are actually pretty good swimmers, but they do have very sharp hooves. And so many scholars believe that as they just kind of like forced each other into the water at the bottom of that they were actually clawing at each other and they bled out. I don't know, but I do know this. That's a whole lot of pigs in there. And before some of you guys get upset, animal cruelty, all these things, I want you to know that Jesus loves all of his creation. All. But that soul of that man is so much more valuable than 2,000 pigs or 20,000 pigs, or all the pigs in the world, okay? And so I love that that takes place. Now, while this is happening, right, these shepherds, pig herders, bad night for these guys. Super eerie, what's going on? This is crazy, there's going to be a beatdown, there's no beatdown, right? They see all this happen, the pigs run down, they drown, and they're thinking, man, it's just a part-time gig. Whoa, I gotta go tell the boss. And so they leave, they go into town, and they wake up like the governor and the mayor and all the townspeople and their bosses, and they have this town meeting that takes place. And I suspect it was a couple hours that had passed, and they all come back, this big crowd of people. And I love it. I love in the text, we're not going to read this at this particular moment, but I love in the text where they're looking at them, the crowd. It says they were afraid of Jesus. And they asked him to leave. You see, Jesus, he's a gentleman. But you know, when you're faced with an encounter with Jesus, you only have two options. The demoniac was healed and he wanted to follow Jesus, and Jesus said, no, I just need you to go and tell people what God has done for you. The people said, go away. You really only get those same two options, guys. You can say, I'm going to follow you, or you can say, go away from me. Now I know, some of you know this, you're probably going there. Peter said, go away from me. But that's different. He saw a glimpse of his holiness, and he saw the comparison of where he was, and it was too much. It's completely different. So that's story 2. Story 3 picks up right where we're at. They're going to go, they're going to leave from there. They say leave. Jesus is a gentleman. He's going to go. They head to Capernaum, which isn't very far, and honestly, it's not a very big, it's not a very town, city. I mean, it's small. 1,500 people, basically, would live there. So a very, very small community, probably fit the whole entire town, almost on what we have here for a campus. Maybe it would extend just a couple blocks beyond. So not a very big region at all. And again, you can imagine, as he's coming up to the shoreline, right, the boat is coming in there. It's not a speedboat, you know. They're going, as they're going, and people, they would do what they do. They're gathering. There's a crowd that's gathering. Now this crowd gathers, again, they want to see Jesus. And in fact, we're not going to go there, but Luke, because I know we're in Mark, Luke actually used more of a Greek emphasis on wording-wise to let us know that the crowd was, it was a dangerous place for Jesus to be. So you're talking about a violent, rude crowd. Think about this room, number-wise, I might be way off, but that's okay, that's fine. Imagine putting 500 people in this room. That'd be pretty tight, wouldn't it? Imagine being like shoulder to shoulder and squished in next to somebody, and there's really no room to move. You have to like squeeze and you bump into it. There's somebody constantly to bump it into. Kind of picture that, because that's really what was going on. Everybody, and the rudeness was they all wanted to get to the front of the line. They all wanted to come up to the front to see Jesus. But in the midst of that, there are only 2 that get through the crowd. The first one, I know how he got there. It's Jairus. He's one of the Jewish synagogue leaders. He would have got through because it's a Jewish crowd, he just kind of has that authority. And so the text says that he comes through the crowd and he walks up to Jesus and he falls on his knees before Jesus. And he says, Jesus, my daughter, she's sick, she's dying, I need you to heal her. See, she's 12 years old. The interesting thing in that society, 12-year-old females were women, but 13 was men. Kind of a difference there. My wife would say it's because women are more mature. I don't know. I don't think so. Anyways, she's at this point where she, not that I'm saying she's going to go have babies right away, but she's at this point where she's starting to come into this adulthood, this womanhood. All right, and they know. They're old. They're not going to have more kids. She's it. They love their daughter. They love their little girl, and they want a legacy. She's going to have to get married and have children and have that legacy. And so this is a big deal. In a Jewish culture, this is a very, very big deal. And so he says, I want you to come and heal my daughter. And Jesus says, okay, let's go. And they start heading that way. Now, I don't know if this is immediate. I don't know if it was like 10 seconds later, 1 minute later. All I know is that very, very, very quickly, as they're moving through the crowd, there's this woman who comes running through the crowd. Now, I know how she got through the crowd as well. 2 reasons. One, faith. See, she's been bleeding for 12 years. Okay, she wasn't like beat up or cut. I've been working on this word all week. I promise I'm going to do my best. Probably going to say it wrong again. It's a gynecological issue. Sounds so weird. Met a guy who couldn't say watermelon. He was like, watermelon. Kind of the same thing. So I'm having trouble with, you know what I'm saying though, guys, right? Guys, girls, ladies, you get it. It was an issue of bleeding for 12 years. Can you imagine? My wife was like, no. I couldn't imagine. The whole town knew it. Everyone. Imagine for 12 years. Look, the Bible talks about it, so we're going to talk about it. I know it's awkward, but listen, ladies, you have modern advancements in 2019, so you can hide those kinds of things. You just need to know she couldn't hide those kinds of things. She would have a cloth that she would have to take over to the lake and wash the cloth out. Okay? This is something that absolutely every single person, all 1,500, they would have known. It was a small community. They would have known. Now, it goes beyond just a cycle of bleeding. This is about being unclean, according to the law, Jewish culture. And when you're unclean, you really can't associate with anybody. You can't go to the synagogue, you can't go worship at all. And everything you sit on is unclean. Your whole household is unclean. Your husband, your children, they're all unclean. Anybody you touch, come in contact, they're all unclean. So that's the second reason why I know she got through the crowd. They're probably like, whoa, hey, oh yeah, over there, just over there. You're good. Bob, move out of the way. You know, kind of thing, because they don't want to be touched. And I love it. So it's that, and she comes rushing through there, and she's thinking, if I can just touch Jesus. And not even that, if I can just touch his robe, if I can just touch that, I'll be healed. And so that faith, and she touches his robe, and I love it. The text says that she was healed immediately. And I love this because she knew it, right? And this is my favorite part, though. Jesus stops, he's like, whoa, who touched me? Right? Can you imagine, right? That bottleneck that we just talked about here, right? And Peter, I love Peter. Peter's like, are you crazy? Look around, everybody touched you. Hello? And he says, no, I felt healing go out from me. Now this part, I don't know, but I kind of picture, like the crowds, I kind of picture this. I don't know if it's right or not, but I see it because it's so beautiful. The crowds move back and Jesus is in the center here, right? It's like an E.F. Hutton moment. It's totally silent. You can hear a pin drop and actually hit the sand, right? It's that quiet, and he's looking around. Who touched him? He knows who touched him. Right? And I've had ladies say this before too. She's like, they would say, you know, what he did was so rude, calling her out. But you stay tracking with me, because there's a deeper purpose to this. And so I can just kind of see him like scanning through the crowd and looking at eyes. And you know, he knows when he sees her. She's the lady over here just shaking like crazy, because the text says she was trembling with fear. And she comes walking up and she falls on her knees at his feet and she confesses everything. And I love it because Jesus just says, your faith has healed you. And he says, go in peace. That was shalom. Let me tell you, it meant more than just go in peace. It was an actual prayer of a blessing in their lives, God's blessing. And let me tell you, this is the first time in 12 years that she could receive that. When Jesus did that, it was so beautiful. She was reconciled back to the community. Everybody saw it. Everybody witnessed it. See, she couldn't just leave and just go over to worship a couple days later and be like, hey, I'm healed. Woo! Because they were going to be like, yeah, I don't know. It's been 12 years. I'm not so sure. But what Jesus did was made it clear to everyone. There was no way around it. Healing right there. So I love that. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture. But in the midst of this, we still have a story, right? It's a meta-narrative. It's a story within a story, because you got Jairus over here like, hey, Jesus, he's kind of in a hurry. His daughter is dying, right? So he's kind of in a hurry. And while he's standing there and Jesus is over here talking with this woman, what happens is a servant comes over to Jairus and says, your daughter just died. In fact, the Greek is very emphatic. It's translated this way: dead your daughter is. Very emphatic. And so I can imagine he's distraught, he's just heartbroken, and I can just kind of see Jesus, though, like putting his hands on his shoulders, right? And just saying, Jairus, hey man, it's all good. Just trust me. Just have faith. I got this. I can do this. Trust me. Trust me. Trust me. You see, in those critical moments, it's not about what you've heard, it's not about what you've seen, it's about faith. Do you have the faith that he can do the impossible? Do you have the faith that he can calm the storm? Do you have the faith that he can raise the dead? And so, they go into the house, and it's just a couple people. Peter, James, and John are in there. And Jesus does this. I love this. Verse 40, so this is Mark 5, verse 41. It says this, as Jesus takes her by the hand, and it says to her, making sure it's on the screen, it says to her, Talitha kum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. Verse 42, immediately the girl stood up and she began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. Keep that in your back pocket. Verse 43, he gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. I love that because you know she's a teenage girl. The first thing he does is say, get her some food, right? Looking at my daughter. But there's more to it, that there's more depth to that. You see, in that culture, food was a means of celebrating as well. And so what Jesus is doing, he's saying, look, all this over here, all this death and the crying and dying and all that stuff, it's all done. And by the way, you need to know that that's exactly what was going on. You see, in that culture, when someone was on their deathbed, they were required to hire people. Because you get there and you're thinking, it's a funeral. Yeah, it's a funeral. Because there were women that would stand outside. Their job was to cry loudly. Some women do that very well. I had to live away from my wife. Listen, they were hired to do that. There were musicians that would play somber music. So that way you knew. As a crowd, you're gathering outside wondering what's going on. What's the latest update? What's the status? And then when you heard all of this, you knew that was it. It was an official death announcement. And so Jesus arrives to all of this, right, going on. And I love this because he shows up and he's like, man, you're good, you're good. She's not dead, she's just sleeping, right? And all this crying turns to laughter now, right? And so everybody's watching. Everyone is watching what's going on when Jesus goes in the house. I imagine again, boy, what's he doing? What's the verdict? What's this going to look like when he comes out? Because they might not be super brilliant, but they're like, okay, she's not moving, she's not breathing, okay, no pulse, stiff as a board. Yeah, she's dead. I can just say that I'm not brilliant either, but I can tell that's dead. And so the laughter that's there. And Jesus goes in and she's good. Get up. He tells her get up. She starts walking. She goes over to grab some food. I love that. But honestly, I got to tell you guys, the most ridiculous statement Jesus ever said is right there in that verse when he says, "Don't tell anyone about this." In fact, he gave strict orders not to tell anyone about that. Now, I just gotta say that sounds ridiculous, because look, I have a daughter. I have 3 kids, a daughter and two sons. I'm telling you what, I love them dearly, and I love them equally. I really do, because each one of them has some unique goofiness that I connect with, and so I love them equally. They're great. And I'm telling you, if any of them died at any point, and Jesus bring them back from the dead, I couldn't keep it secret. I don't know about Jairus, but I would be the most horrible Christian on the planet. Really, I'd be terrible because I wouldn't be able to do that. No way, I would tell everybody, people I know, people I don't know, shake somebody, hey, guess what? And I would just tell them because I'd be so excited. I can't imagine what Jairus is thinking at that moment. I mean, put yourself in his shoes. People are going to know. You can't hide something like that, right? Was he just open the door and he's like, okay, thank you for coming. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate it. You can go home now. You Bob? See you guys. Okay. And he closed the door. Can you imagine how ridiculous? You can't do that. You can't hide this. She's going to be at school the next day. Kids are going to be throwing themselves in their lockers trying to get away from her, right? She was dead. Now she's alive. You can't hide that. So, what does it all mean? Here's the sermon. If you're tracking, set your watches. I just want you to know, these stories, they're beautiful. Because when we started off, Jesus was telling his disciples parables and they just weren't getting it. But yet we see one actually lived out in the stories today. You've got this woman over here, bleeding for 12 years. You've got this little girl over here, 12 years old and dead. I want you to know that that's not two stories, that's one story. But know this, that it wasn't just one woman healed, it was two. And they're connected by that number 12. 12 years bleeding, 12 years old. Let me just ask you this. In one word, what was the woman with the bleeding problem, what was her problem? Just in one word. Just to shout out. It's not a trick question. She was bleeding? Blood, yes. I'm going to try to give you hints on that one. She was blood and bleeding. Yes. So blood. So okay, how about this one over here? This little girl who just died. What was her problem? In one word. Death. Yeah, see? Pretty simple. Try to keep it easy. I want you to know this. This is how awesome, I can't even describe, honestly, how awesome God is. But this is just a little tidbit of how awesome he is. They were not understanding the parables. And so what Jesus did, God really just engineered this living parable. Because the next time that we have blood and death come together at the same time in the scriptures, literally, is at the cross of Christ. I love that. He's showing, you don't get it? Let me show you what it's like. And he shows this living parable of what Christ did for us on Calvary with the blood and the death combined. But there are two themes that really run through all of these stories today. This concept of fear and feet. Fear is something that we read about in the Bible. We see that fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, the beginning of understanding. And I've had some say that's a reverence, that's an awe, and I can kind of give you that. But there are times, honestly, where there's a fear of the Lord and a fear of God that's spoken of, and it's straight up fear. And it's a healthy fear. Don't get me wrong. I was going to go and talk to you about my dad and how I was afraid of him and all kinds of things, but a healthy way, because if you do something wrong, you get the beat down and you get the belt. I don't want to take up your time. I think you understand where that's going. I think you understand what that means. There's a fear. There's a healthy fear. And in all of these stories, I say four because it's really three, but there's really four. All of them we see fear. You go back to the very first one of the disciples, and the storm comes up. They're afraid. And they wake up Jesus right there afraid. You need to know this. When it says that they were afraid, that's one Greek word. But the next verse, when it says they were terrified, that's a totally different word. The first word, when they're afraid, is kind of like cowardly. It's like cowardice. So there was some fear. But when the next verse, when it says when they're wondering who is this, and they're looking at Jesus and they're terrified, that means straight up terrified. Big difference between the two. You move from there to the demoniac, which people were afraid of. They were afraid of that guy, but he comes down here, and then when Jesus appears, what happens? Remember when the crowd shows up? They're not afraid of the demoniac, are they? They're afraid of Jesus. Same thing as the disciples. They're not terrified of the storm, they're terrified of Jesus. Then you get to the third story with this woman who was healed. And she's shaking and trembling. Now remember, she wasn't scared before she was healed. It was after she was healed, when she was there in the presence of Jesus. And then you even see with Jairus, when Jesus raises his daughter, they were astonished. I told you to put that in your back pocket. It's a fear. It's a good, healthy fear. Death, disease, demons, de-elements. I have another D for that one. The storm, right? You look at those four things. Those were major fears in that Jewish culture. Those were major fears. Jesus just comes in and he says, I'm going to knock every one of them out of there. And you're going to see that I have the power. And so I don't know what your greatest fear is, guys. I don't know. Maybe you're afraid you're going to be alone your whole life. Maybe you're afraid that you're going to be poor in your years of retirement. Whatever that fear is, put it in a story. Because honestly, this is how it works out. If your greatest fear, let me rephrase that. If your fear of Jesus isn't greater than your greatest fear, you're not going to have the faith that you need to get through those storms in life. How do we get that? What's the second word? Feet.
See, bowing and kneeling at someone's feet, that was a place of dishonor, so you wouldn't see it much in Scripture. You wouldn't see it much in culture. Even today, you wouldn't see it. But in all 4 of the stories, we see it. You see it when the demoniac comes running towards Jesus. He falls on his knees on the feet of Jesus, at the feet of Jesus. When you move to the next one, you've got Jairus running toward him, falling on his knees at the feet of Jesus. You've got this woman who was healed, who comes over, falls on her knees at the feet of Jesus. And might I add, when the disciples were terrified in the boat and Jesus stood to calm the storm, they were at his feet. That's where we need to be. The feet of Jesus. There it is. Good. I'm told there's a statue. I wanted you to see it. I just added that today, so I don't have this part scripted in there. But there is this statue. It is actually located at the Assembly of God Theological Headquarters in Missouri. I haven't been there. I'm not endorsing them, but this statue really paints a great picture. This is a statue, a life-size statue of Jesus washing the feet of Peter. And you can see how his hair is hanging down. And I'm told that if you want to see the face of Jesus when you go to see this, guys, we want to do that. I haven't even been there yet, and I know I want to do it. I think it's instinctive for us as Christians. You want to see his face, but it's covered with the hair. And so I'm told if you want to do that, you have to get on your knees in order to see his face. Guys, that's what, in the most purest sense of our walk with Christ, that's where we need to be. Now, let me just say this. We have to be on our knees to see his face because he's already on his knees serving us. Guys, when you encounter Christ, you have 2 options. You can follow or you can reject. You can ask him to go away. That's it. You can accept him or you can reject him. That's it. Period. And so this morning, I want you to understand, if you're here and you don't have that relationship with Jesus, where he's your everything, he's your master, he's your Lord, he's your King, we want to make it right. And the team, the band, the musicians, whatever you want to call them, they're going to come forward and they're going to